Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ouija Wednesday. I am Sapphire Sandalo, as you know, and this is a live stream that I do every Wednesday because Wednesdays are a magical day. I don't know if you knew that, but Wednesdays and Fridays are like the best days to communicate with spirits and shit like that. I don't remember why. Someone just told me that at some point. Anyways, hi, Lucic regards and aloha kitty 613. So tonight, I have a very special guest. You probably know him from Paranormal Caught on Camera on Travel Channel. He is also a host on a variety of things, and he's a journalist who actually used to zip around the world with my husband. Got a bunch of free trips that I was not allowed to go on. Anyways, and now he's still a journalist, but he focuses more on the paranormal side of things. And yes, please give a nice big warm Twitch welcome to Aaron Sagers.
Hello. Hi. Happy Wednesday. Happy magical Wednesday.
Every Wednesday is a magical Wednesday. So how are you?
I'm good. We were talking a little bit backstage that I'm normally in Brooklyn, but I'm not in Brooklyn right now, and wherever I am is slightly humid. So you're getting a nice little shine off of this Italian skin right here. I did powder earlier, but it did not hold. But I'm good. I'm great. How are you doing?
I am okay. I'm also very sweaty. I have like a tiny fan that I added to my sound booth, but it doesn't really help, as you can see.
I need some of that fan action over here as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So I would love to hear a little bit about, I don't know, the type of stuff that you're reading right now, stuff you're watching right now. What are you into right now?
I mean, it's funny because look, it's September 30th, where October begins tomorrow, and I guess people are in the Halloween spirit, but for me, and I think probably for a lot of people, Halloween is a year-long process. I'm always thinking about spooky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my research is typically always involving something involved with the paranormal. So lately I've been reading about demons and specifically what's called the archaeology of demons. I'll bust out this book that I've got. It's called
Ooh.
Evil Archaeology by Dr. Heather Lynn. I've read through it before, but I'm actually revisiting it because it breaks down a lot of entities that we call demons and sort of the
Mm-hmm.
origins of them, and things that more modern religions will say are evil started out as more folk entities that were neither good nor evil, or not only good or evil. So looking at that, and then I still work as a journalist and a mainstream journalist across the board. And yes, I also do a lot of work in the paranormal. Not only that, but that's where I happen to be happiest at times. And I also started a podcast in the middle of, or the beginning of pandemic. So I've been researching a lot of stories like that about the devil made me do it guilty plea, or attempt to be a guilty plea in the US. And that's kind of why I was revisiting this evil archaeology as well.
Oh, okay. So let's start with evil archaeology. Tell us a little bit about what the entities were from folklore that were then, I guess, taken into or converted as demons or called
Yeah.
demons by religions.
I mean, think about things like Pazuzu.
Mm-hmm.
Pazuzu is one that was made famous by the movie The Exorcist, but
Right.
it started out, and since I didn't write the book, I read it, but I could be getting some of these details wrong. But basically, started out as more of I think it was a Sumerian entity that was associated with fertility and had different purposes for different people at different times. So while you could piss off an entity like that, maybe get it on your bad side, or it on you on its bad side, it wasn't explicitly an evil thing until the Roman Catholic Church came along and decided we need to group all of these entities in one big bad evil bucket. We can't
Hmm.
we can't stand to have all these other gods running around. Another character like that is Pan. A
Hmm.
lot of the Pan was a bit of a party boy. He was again, like a sort of a folk rural spirit, and he had a bit of a wild lifestyle. Well, the church wasn't a fan of that, so they need to recast him as this bad god, bad entity. And so a lot of the images wrapped up with our biblical sense of Satan, like the horns and the
Hmm.
goat legs and the hooves and everything, we kind of got from Pan literally being demonized. So it's fascinating, and it kind of, I was raised Roman Catholic. I was
Same.
raised Catholic and very steeped in it. Like it was a pretty religious, it wasn't casual. It was a big part of your life, right? As a kid.
Yeah. Oh yeah. As a
Yeah.
Filipino, yeah.
Yeah, same. And the notion of demons and the devil, it was a literal figure. It wasn't just a figurative thing. There was a literal bad guy that was Satan that lived underground in hell with a
Hmm.
pitchfork, and he had minions. It was an actual figure. So, and I actually do think there's bad out there, but when you read about sort of how these entities were co-opted and demonized by the church, you learn that, okay, well, maybe our notion of what was evil wasn't exactly like a accurate, authentic representation of what those creatures were.
Yeah, and I feel like we see that a lot in especially Catholicism, even our holidays.
Hmm.
There like I can't remember where I had heard this, but apparently Jesus's actual birthday is supposed to be in July, but the reason why we celebrate it in December is so that it overtook the winter solstice. Basically
Sure.
every Catholic holidays like Easter is the spring solstice. Spring solstice, is that the word? Spring equinox. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like you can almost like match up so much of Catholicism with paganism. And it was just so that they could convert people from paganism a lot easier. And that kind of stuff like just blows my mind, especially as somebody who knew nothing but Catholicism as a kid.
Yeah.
And then when you like my mom, like she would tell me things like I will never forget this. I don't remember how old I was, but she was like, remember, Sapphire, Roman Catholicism is the only real Christianity because all the other Christianity stemmed from that. And like, I'm like, that, I don't think that's a good reason to stick with that one religion, like the religion that didn't adapt to the way that we live and like things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if like that's how it was in your family.
I went to Catholic school as well,
Same.
and the notion of so my parents weren't really hellfire and brimstone, but there were definitive, obviously we went to church every Sunday. I was an altar boy, and
Me too.
the and
I mean,
like
girl.
girl, altar person. And the so, but my parents didn't preach a lot of you're going to go to hell, but there
Hmm.
were very distinct belief systems in our household. But I did encounter some of that throughout my childhood, as far as uh, Catholicism is the only way. And even if it wasn't like, and everybody else is going to hell, it was like, well, they have their beliefs, but ours is the real deal.
Uh-huh.
So, but it's I mean I actually, as crazy as it is, as it may seem, I'm pleased that I was raised with that, because it gave me some sort of unique perspective. And I even I I have a complicated relationship with the church because I'm not a practicing Catholic, but it is sort of still ingrained in me.
Mhm.
And on some level, it's like it's a part of you. And I typically say I'm culturally Catholic.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like the same because it's uh, it was so much of my life for a very long time. Like the people you hung out with, or at least for me, like they were all other Catholic kids. Everything we learned in like our seasons, like it was all just very based around Catholicism. And so to even if I don't go to church anymore or really like do anything Catholic, it's still like it's hard to like let go of all of those things.
So how it like actually one of the ways that it's still present for me is, well, I enjoy gathering, with people around Christmas time, and looking for Easter eggs and eating Peeps, because that was a very Jesus thing to do. Jesus was a big fan of Peeps.
I was
Don't know
super
if
fan.
anybody knew that. Yeah, and he would actually. It was a lesser known biblical story, but he would actually hide the eggs and then say to the apostles, like, "All right, everybody, go look for the eggs." But no, the way that it's actually present for me is when we talk about the paranormal. Like I I have opinions and accept the possibility of a pantheon of, if you want to call it gods or spirits or whatever. I think every religion has tapped into something there that
Mhm,
is probably right. For me, I process it through the lens of being Catholic as a kid, but that's not what I think is the only way to go. And so, there is that sort of visual imagery of God with the beard and Jesus and all that, even though I don't think that that's the only way to go. It's just sort of how I process the notion of things out there, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
that makes sense. Yeah, and yeah, speaking of, Paranormal Activity, so I've mentioned her to you, like, a bunch of times. My shaman friend, Lynn, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, she had mentioned to me once that depending on your background, so your religion or your culture, the way that you experience paranormal activity will change because of that. Like it speaks the
Hmm.
language that you speak. And I found that so fascinating because in a way, it's like everybody's right in some way. Like if you look at all the different religions and different cultures, there's a lot of similarities. We'll call similar things different things. So, like the night hag in, I don't know, Scandinavia, it's called a banyunya in the Philippines. It's called like a different thing, whatever, but it's essentially the same idea.
Yeah. And I think that even opens up the idea of, so when people say they see a certain type of entity or apparition and it looks like the classic gray ghost or lady in white or whatever, I wonder if what they are seeing is actually a lady in white or whatever, or if there's some sort of entity being able to peek inside the brain of someone and say, "Oh, this is what they think of when they think of a ghost," or "This is their visual reference." So
Yeah.
that's how I'm being interpreted. That's how I'm going to be. I think you can even get down, follow that line of the theory with potential aliens as well. That they think, maybe they can see, what you expect to see when you see a flying saucer or a little gray alien or whatever, and they're
Hmm.
like, oh, that's what they expect to see. Well, we better show up like that so they understand what's happening. uh, I don't think it's necessarily that all shadow people and all lady in white and all of that are the same thing. I think it's
Hmm.
maybe tapping into our own actually pop culture and our own sort of visual reference guide.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And somebody says hello.
Oh, hey Neil, he's not only a Nightmare listener, he's also a graphic designer who helped design our logo. So
Oh, thanks, Neil.
thanks, Neil.
I'm just seeing these comments now. What the fuck?
I I almost whenever I see someone like Neil that pops up in the chat, on one hand, I want to call him out because he's a great graphic designer and I appreciate his work. But there's a part of me that doesn't want to acknowledge that he's someone I also work with, and I just want to treat him as like a true, like a pure supporter of whatever I do. So that way I can be like, yeah, that's someone that really supports my work, as opposed to also our show graphic designer.
They can be both.
Well,
That's
Neil is both.
fine.
Neil's great.
Well, thank you for showing up, Neil. If you have any questions, put them in the chat. Um, what were we talking about? Oh, how people have different visual or different languages for how they
Yeah.
receive things. And I don't know I'm curious to know, like, do you ever think about theories like simulation theory or like reality, stuff like that?
Yeah, I do. It's not really where I go to, but I
Hmm.
do wonder if we're just part of some sort of someone's experiment, someone's zoo. If we're already living in the tech singularity and we're just playing through someone else's simulation of us.
Uh-huh.
I think it's an interesting thought. Maybe my own ego and arrogance doesn't allow me to fully embrace it because I want to be me and I want to be my pure self.
Right.
But yeah, no, I certainly think about it. I I don't know if I fully commit to it, but it's a fun thought.
Hmm. Reason I bring it up, like to me, and this might make me sound absolutely insane, but I don't really see simulation theory as like we're being controlled by other things, more in the sense of like everything is a simulation, like nothing is real. And
Mm,
in a way, that is true because the way that every individual experiences the world will depend on all of this, our machine. Like there are
yeah,
people who can't see or can't hear, they can't feel, and who's to say that their reality is different from ours? And so reason I bring that up is because of how if entities are like showing up to people depending on like what they can see, it's just to me another example of how nothing's real. Like what is real doesn't really, there is no objective reality, basically, is my
yeah.
thesis.
I think it's fascinating. I do think that. So I think it was Matrix 2, the second
Mhm.
Matrix, which ended up being not as good as the first movie, and the franchise was diminishing returns, in my opinion. But
Yeah.
in the second one in particular, they didn't go deep enough into this, and I really wish that they had, but they dipped into this idea of things like ghosts or vampires or whatever were essentially glitches in the matrix, or people or
Hmm.
avatars that had broken free and then kind of created themselves into their own entities. And I
Okay.
was when they first kind of posited that within the movie, I was like, oh cool, are we going to get essentially a matrix horror movie right now where they really explore this idea of like, what if all this stuff is real but it's all these glitches within that matrix? And they didn't
That's kind
quite
of
go
cool.
there, but I
Oh,
always thought they could have. It would have been something kind of cool to explore.
I don't remember the sequel that much. What happens in that? Like the basic, what is it about? Does he have to save the world again? Like, what?
I think. Well, I didn't see. Apparently, I don't remember much about the plot because I was thinking about what it should have been. But I think. I mean, it involved more Agent Smith and Neo, and I think there
Mhm.
was a rave in that one.
I think
And
I remember that. Yeah.
unless that was the third one, but yeah, I forget exactly what the plot line was of that one. It wasn't that great.
I recently watched The Matrix maybe like a couple years ago, because my friend had never seen it. So we were like, oh, let's watch it together. And it did not age well. Like was kind of shocked at how not as good of a movie as I remember it being. Like, to me, like, I think it did so much in terms of, like, it had so many iconic scenes because of the special
Hmm.
effects and, like, the ideas behind it, but, like, the writing? It was literally exposition, like, every scene where they're just, like, laying
Yeah.
shit out for you, and I'm kinda like, "Oh, this is not good." But
Well,
whatever, that's just my take.
I need to revisit it. I mean, because I did quite love that movie when it
It's a
came out. It
cool
was very
movie,
much,
yeah.
yeah. But I mean, if I truly, like, if I'm being honest, like, I'm a big Star Wars nerd, and you look back on some of the dialogue in that, the original trilogy, it gets pretty rough in places. So
I bet.
yeah, so you love it for what it is, even though Star Wars is still legitimately great.
I am not much of a Star Wars person.
It's okay. I don't
We'll
judge.
we'll move on before people in the chat come after me. Anyways, so there was another thing that you mentioned. You said that you were researching the first case of somebody who used the devil as their motivation for something, right?
Right, right. So yeah, the devil made me do it case, and it's a really fascinating case. I mean, shameless plug, if you wanted in full detail, check out the Nightmarica episode that just dropped today, in fact, and it's the titled "The Devil Made Me Do It," so it's easy enough to find it. But
Nice.
it was, I believe, 1981, and there was a guy that his name was Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, is Arnie Cheyenne Johnson because he's still alive, but he
Ooh.
stabbed his friend and his girlfriend's boss. It's sort of out of nowhere. I mean, there was this day of them hanging out, Arnie and his girlfriend and the landlord, whose name was Bono, I believe. Tony, I think it was Tony Bono, and at the end of this day, things got a little bit tense, and then he stabbed him, and it seemed to come out of nowhere. But then when you peel back the layers, it turns out that Arnie Cheyenne Johnson and his girlfriend, Debbie Glatzel, were involved with a potential exorcism of Debbie's younger brother, David, who was 11 at the time. And there was a whole, depending on whether you believe the Catholic Church or Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous Ed and Lorraine Warren, got involved in this. They were saying that this boy was infested by 43 demons, and that the Catholic Church was they were assisting the Catholic Church with exorcisms. The Catholic Church ended up saying, "Well, we looked into the case, but there wasn't a full and formal exorcism, and we can't say any more than that." And Arnie Cheyenne Johnson was apparently so distraught over this young boy being possessed that he said to whatever entity, like, "Leave the little kid alone, come into me, come at me, bro," sort of thing. And supposedly the demon entered him, and because of all that, his lawyer ended up trying to use this defense that that Arnie Cheyenne Johnson was not responsible for the murder of Bono, the stabbing, that instead it was this entity that had possessed him after Arnie Cheyenne Johnson tried to save David Glatzel. And it became a worldwide sensation. Supermarket tabloids, TV networks, newspapers. It was all over the place as this very famous case. And it all happened in Connecticut, Brookfield, Connecticut, if I remember correctly. And this became quite the sensation. And the involvement of Ed and Lorraine Warren makes it even more so. Yeah, it was a big one. And actually, here's this isn't really a secret. This is also the going to be the plot line of the new Conjuring movie, which comes out in
Mhm.
possibly June 2021.
Wow. So wait, what was the verdict? Did I miss? you saying?
No, I didn't say it.
Oh.
I didn't know if I should give the spoiler. So really what ended up happening is the lawyer attempted to use that as a defense,
Mhm.
and the judge said, we aren't going to allow you to proceed with that. So then they instead try to use a self-defense argument, self-defense plea. But that really, so Arnie Cheyenne Johnson ended up getting convicted of murder in the first degree, I believe, and he served 5 years of a potential 20-year sentence. And then afterwards, so he and Debbie Glatzel got married, and they continued to stand by their claims that there was a possession. And the younger boy, David, ended up not talking about it. He kind of wanted a private life and went away. But Ed and Lorraine Warren sold a bunch of books, became kind of
Yeah.
famous off of it. And then the other part of the Glatzel family, I think it was Carl Jr., who was the son, who was the brother of David. Oh, those are my dogs. Sorry.
Okay.
And I don't know why. Roxy, come here. Come here.
Show me
Sorry.
your dogs.
They do this thing. This is behind the scenes. Sorry for everyone for barking dogs. The bigger one is also a little bit older, and she's not crazy, but she is getting weird. And she does this thing where she hovers above the little dog and decides, I want to sit there. Let me sit there. And then she'll just start nurring, nurr, 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 and then start barking to get into space. And it's like, you're just being a jerk right now. Anyhow, sorry, slight detour.
I
I thought they
love
were all
her.
I thought they're all settled down for the night. But so yeah, the big thing is, so did the devil do it, or were Ed and Lorraine Warren just trying to sell books and profiting off of this case, or was this just a crime of passion? And then someone later said it was the devil, or maybe it's all of those things, and maybe just like we were taught when we were kids that the Lord works in mysterious ways. What if the devil works in mysterious ways too? I mean, ultimately, if the devil is a thing and he set out with some sort of intention, he ultimately got the attention of the world.
Right.
He tore apart this Glatzel family. Someone ended up dead. Money, which is the root of all evil, really came into play with all this. Like, I mean, maybe he got exactly what he wanted. So who's to say?
Um, Interesting. Was that the first case that made people aware of Ed and Lorraine Warren?
It wasn't the first case. It was a pretty famous one. So in 1975 they were involved in the Amityville haunting as
Right.
well, and it took a little bit of time before they fully started getting the name recognition off of that. But they were already gaining attention and becoming well known. But this
Got
certainly
it.
added to it. But and it was the first attempt to use the devil made me do it defense in the US. By this point, I believe the United Kingdom had two somewhat recent cases similar to that actually did go to court, but this was the first one in America.
Interesting. What is your opinion of the Warrens? Because I feel like I've heard, I mean, I used to be like 100% on board. I'm like, yeah, everything they say and do, sure, yes, that all happened. I read the Demonologist book and I was like, yeah, all of this is true. But then I feel like, and I don't know if you've also noticed this, but like maybe in the past couple of years, mostly because the Conjuring movies are so popular, a lot of people are talking about the Warrens and being like, they weren't really like as much of the real thing as people believe. And now I'm like, I don't know what to think anymore.
Yeah, and I think that people are flawed, but the maybe the answer is somewhere in the middle. I mean, I never met Ed Warren, but I met Lorraine Warren multiple times.
Oh, wow.
And she was always a very nice person to me.
Hmm.
And I think that first off, their impact on the paranormal cannot be overstated, because they had a huge they really brought in a lot of attention to the paranormal, and in America they were really this superstar ghost hunting couple. And there's
Hmm.
a couple other big names within the paranormal in the US, but they would be the biggest. I mean, Hans Holzer is up there, but Hans Holzer is not a household name these days, unfortunately. But as far as their investigative styles, I mean, look, they conducted their investigations at no charge.
Mm.
However, they did do lectures, they did sell books, they did do movie deals. Now, I do lectures, I sell books, I work in TV. I do technically profit off of the paranormal, so I can't really be hypocritical for me
Hmm.
to say anything bad about that. I guess the question is, did they manipulate people? Did they overhype certain activity? Did they leap to demon a little too quickly at times? I don't know, because I wasn't there. But
Hmm.
in my experience, I don't think demonic infestation is happening around every corner. And I think that maybe there are other avenues to trying to help people. But again, I wasn't involved in their investigations. So I'm hedging my bets with that response a little bit, but that is really how I feel. Like,
Hmm.
I can't call them out on something that I wasn't really involved in. But even from the beginning, that's not only in recent years that they attracted controversy. Even from the
Mm.
beginning, they were attracting controversy.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially with this type of work, especially when we have half of the population who doesn't even believe that these things are even real. So it's like, I, what am I trying to say? Um, well, I guess like people usually jump to the, oh, you're just making up stories, you're exaggerating, like for the fame and for like the money. But if you like, if this is what you do, like you have to make a living out of it somehow. Like even with like my shaman friend, like I was always just kind of like, how do you make money?
Mhm.
Like why does it feel so weird to me for people who do more spiritual related work to make money? And I think part of that maybe is the Catholic in me. Like priests don't get like paid. I guess everything's provided for them by like the people who go to the church and like give the whatever you call it, was it? The offerings or something?
Yeah.
With the little basket that you pass around. Yeah, I feel like we are all sort of conditioned to be like, you can't make money off of like this thing because then you're
Yeah. There's
fake.
certainly no money involved in the Catholic Church. They
Ex-
don't.
right, yeah, so it's just like dumb. I don't know. Anyways, I think I'm also just like drawing on the whole, like I'm so over this like starving artist like trope, right, where it's just like, why don't people value things, or why are there certain jobs that people think people are not allowed to like make a decent living off of? I don't know. Now I'm like going down like a whole other road.
I
People
mean,
might
we
know.
could go down that rabbit hole. I'd be happy to have that talk. But
Yeah, and it's just
uh,
like we're okay with people on Wall Street making just like a bunch of money, but when people are trying to make like an honest living and they like charge a little bit more than you think you should be paying, then it's like, I don't know. That's just me.
I guess with maybe any industry, and it could also be applied to the paranormal or psychics or even
Mhm.
some shamans, I'm sure, out there. I don't know. But when you're when you're profiting off of people's fears and you're manipulating them, then that and exploiting those fears, I think that's
Mm,
when you cross into the line.
mm,
Because the notion of, okay, maybe a psychic, it's, well, you're going to have to come back to me another time, and We're gonna have
To
to
find
keep
out the
working
rest,
on this, yeah,
yeah.
to clean that energy and get you to the right space. So I think that's when
Well,
it
those
starts
aren't the
crossing
real
over
people,
to,
though.
yeah. Well, I mean, who knows? But it is it can cross over into that icky feeling. So, but I'm certainly not saying that about Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Right.
I think that they were able to craft a career out of this, and I think they did a lot of interesting things. I I don't necessarily share Ed and Lorraine's sense that there was constant demonic infestation, and
Mhm.
that doesn't mesh with my own research and my own thought process. I don't think using, since this is Ouija Wednesday, I don't think using a Ouija board automatically opens you up to possession and infestation.
Yeah.
I think bad things can happen, and bad things can happen whether I'm using a K2 meter or a whatever necrophonic app on my phone or a Ouija board. It's more about what I'm bringing to the table, what I intend to do,
Yeah.
and I think it's more than that. And I also, yeah, I just don't think that demons are around every corner.
Yeah. Um, unlike, no, I won't mention that. So let's see. Did you mention a third thing that you were reading up on? Am I making that up?
Hmm.
You talked
No,
about evil
probably not.
archaeology, devil made me do it, and I think there was like another thing you mentioned.
I'm trying to think. I'm
Maybe
always
you
trying to
didn't.
think like what other books are around me right now. And I don't know. I can't remember. We were just talking about this. I will say that I was revisiting a lot of the Roswell case because
Hmm.
I was having a talk with the guys from the Bigfoot Collectors Club, and they did a really excellent 3-part series on the Roswell case. And I've been out to Roswell. I've given talks there. I've been fortunate to meet some of the folks that have since passed away and some of the really notable researchers on that case. So I was kind of refreshing my memory on that case just recently. So that's a great one. But I don't know. I mean, this is really just constantly what I'm doing, constantly what I'm looking into, and also revisiting some cool horror movies because it is good Halloween time
Spooky
viewing.
season. Yeah. What
Exactly.
movies have you been watching? Let's talk horror movies.
Yeah. So the other day I was rewatched Poltergeist, which is a great one from the
Yeah.
80s.
I rewatched that like a month
One,
ago and I was like, oh, I forgot how good this was.
yeah, it's a great one. And let's see what else. So I have the Shutter streaming app, or yeah, streaming service, and so I was watching the Creep Show series they did, and then I also
Hmm.
rewatched the original Creep Show movie. But something I actually really like about Shutter, I don't work for Shutter. So I'm not getting any money off of this. I will say something they do that's really cool is they have essentially like a Shutter TV that when you open the app, there's or the service, there's already a movie playing because they just essentially have a channel of horror movies constantly playing. And the other day, I just opened it up thinking, oh, I'm going to watch maybe Friday the 13th. They have a bunch of those on there. But instead, I get sucked into this like schlocky B horror movie that was just playing on the Shutter TV when I opened the platform. And I got sucked into that. I don't even remember the name of the movie that was playing, but I love that component to it because it's just like some woman that's possessed and killing other people and looks like a very kind of vixen one moment and then an evil old hag the next. And I'm like, I'm getting down with this terrible movie.
No, it's kind of fun. I feel, I have Shutter and I've never used that feature, but I feel like what might be so appealing about it is because of option fatigue. Like, how many times
Yeah.
do we open up Netflix or Hulu and just waste half an hour trying to decide what to watch? And here's like an option where they just give you something like, here, you didn't ask for this, but now you're gonna watch it.
Well, it's also it taps into. So I'm a child of the '80s, and I remember on late at night, Saturday during the day and whatnot, I would watch. In particular, I think it was USA. Before USA ever
Mm,
made its
mhm,
own TV shows, you could just turn it on. And there'd be USA Up All Night, or during the weekend, they'd be playing all these random movies,
mhm,
and that's how I, of course, going to a video store and renting a movie is a good way to just discover new stuff. But I would just discover random stuff watching USA and watching these random cable channels that they could only afford to buy the airing rights for these cheesy movies. And so that was like it was a random joy to discover those movies, and that was interspersed with discovering the movies that I still love that were classics, like Ghostbusters
mhm.
or Gremlins or things like that, or Poltergeist. But I was also discovering Hammer horror movies, or some of the original Universal monster movies, or some of the random ones that, oh, there's this one, it's not Village of the Damned, but it's sort of a knockoff of Village of the Damned that I discovered when I was a kid that terrified me, but that I loved, and I just, by random viewing, did I discover that. And you're right, like
Mhm.
these days I think you're reducing that random discovery. I will say though, over on Shutter, there is a fun, tight little horror movie called Host, which has gotten a lot of buzz.
I love
And
Host.
yeah, I thought they did a really good job on that one. But I I honestly don't know if I would have just stumbled upon it in the wild and watched it. Like, so I'm glad that I sought that one out, but I do miss the randomness of good horror movies.
Yeah, I guess I'll check out Shutter TV then. Is it like you can turn it on and it might be like in the middle of a movie? It doesn't just like start something.
Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it did it for everybody. I mean, maybe it's some sort of setting that I put on that I didn't even know. But yeah, you just pop it open and then it's
It
playing
starts.
something random.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna look into this.
Yeah.
Um, what's the most recent horror movie you saw that you liked that you would recommend other than
Well, I
Host?
mean, yeah, I mean, I would say Host was a good one, and that was very recent. And then what else? There was I I forget the name of it. It was also on Shutter. Ooh, I forget
What's it
the
about?
not. It was about a cabin. It was about this couple that buys a house, I think, in Wales, and then they discover a secret room. Maybe it's called the secret room or
Mm,
hidden room or something
okay.
that allowed them to manifest anything they chose to. And then the wife, who could not have children, decided to ask for a child, and things kind of go a little bit awry from there. It drags a
Ah,
little bit, but
uh-huh.
it's a pretty fun concept. And then on the TV front, I've been enjoying Lovecraft Country.
Mm. I'm not caught up yet, but I like it so far.
Yeah. Well, what scares you, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh man, I mean, what doesn't? I feel like I'm terrified of everything. I mean, like real world wise, I am terrified of everything. Like I'm afraid of heights, I'm afraid of the ocean. Well, because I
Okay.
can't swim. I'm afraid of the dark. I'm afraid of everything. When it comes to horror movies, though, it really just depends on my mood. Um, Honestly, I don't think anything has actually truly scared me for the longest time. I think the last movie, it's not even scared. It's more like the movie that made me uncomfortable. Have you seen Raw?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there's like a scene where she's like over the toilet and she's like pulling hair out of her throat. I have literally had that dream multiple times. Like seeing that made me
Hmm.
go like, "Oh God, I know what that's like." And then there's a scene where like they're at a party and this girl is like licking a guy's eyeball, and that just I was screaming so hard because you can't fake that. Like, she was legit licking an eyeball, and that just grossed me out so much, and I was just like, "I can't handle this." That, and then also when they were, like, hooking up in the paint, Like that also
Mhm.
made me super gag just because like paint grosses me out. And I'm like, oh, it's like all in their mouths and like everything. So I wouldn't say that's like scary. It's more just like that's what got to me. That's what gets under my
I
skin.
I don't really like involving eyes, so
And what?
I could
You
eyes,
don't
like
like oh,
eyeballs.
eyes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I could the licking of the eye, I would not be down with. Anytime
Ugh.
there's what was it? It was the horror movie, The Audition, I believe it
Mhm.
was called, where they had like an eye scene that creeped me out. But I'm not, I'm not. I don't. I was a pretty scared kid, but I don't really carry
Same.
around a lot of like fears as an adult. Either I don't really have a lot of real world fears, and I don't really have a lot of paranormal fears either.
Hmm.
But you say you're afraid of the dark, but when you're in a, I don't know, a dark room, a hotel room, whatever it might be, in an unfamiliar space, and you're in the dark and you hear something, does your mind go to like there's an axe murderer in the room? Does your mind go to there's a demon? Does your mind go to what's the mystery monster that's in the darkness?
Well, it's okay. Correction. I'm afraid of the dark when I'm alone or when I think I'm alone, because I feel like I definitely have an overactive imagination. So I feel like I'm more scared of like what I might see, if that makes sense. Like I don't
Oh,
want
it makes
to
total
be in a
sense.
dark, yeah, like I don't want to be in the dark in a dark room by myself and then be looking out into the darkness and then something will just like be there. Whether that could be anything. Because I've heard plenty of stories of people who are like, I was laying in bed and then all of a sudden I see this figure at like the end of the room and then it just like runs over to me and I'm like, I want to see that shit. So
The
yeah.
Yeah, the potential. I mean,
Yeah.
the darkness holds a lot of potential, and it could really be anything. It's like Schrodinger's monster, you know? It's it's
Yeah.
it's like anything at that moment in the darkness, you could either be surrounded by monsters or not surrounded by monsters, but you don't know. And it could be anything from your deep imagination of fears and like those moments when you're in a, I say hotel room because outside of 2020 I normally spend a lot of time traveling and in a lot of hotel rooms,
Yeah.
and the thing about hotel rooms is they have unfamiliar shapes. So when you wake up in a hotel room in the middle of the night and maybe the the damn alarm clock that they have on the nightstand that's giving off just a faint glow casting in the darkness, and you start picking up the shapes, you're not really familiar with those shapes. So is that a lamp, or is that a tall skinny figure that's just looming in the corner of the room?
Mhm.
Is that where you put your suitcase, or is there some sort of creepy little goblin hunched over there? And
Right.
or did I check? I was, it was late at night when I checked in, and I was tired, and I went to bed. Did I open up the closet to see if there was someone lurking in there? Suddenly at night, everything is possible, and your mind is able to
Mhm.
go to all of these places all at once. Could be all of those things.
That's terrifying. Actually, oh my god, I just remembered. Um, my therapist, I had brought up to her, I don't remember how this came up, but I do talk to her about ghosts, and I'm pretty sure she doesn't believe in ghosts, and she just kinda like, "Uh-huh," because I pay her to listen to me. But I was talking to her about how I'm terrified of ever actually experiencing anything paranormal just because, like, I've never. So the first one, I don't know. I just don't know what that will feel like. You know what I mean? And she was just like, "Why do you think that is?" And I remember just like sitting there. I'm like, I don't. I don't know. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like wasting so much money just like sitting here thinking about this stupid question. But then my my grandfather died in July, and what was so weird is that I feel like since that happened, I am not as afraid because I'm like actively trying to get him to show up. So I'm like, oh wow,
Mm,
I guess it took me having someone on the other side that I like actually wanted to appear to me somehow for me to like be more open to it happening.
yeah. I mean, I think
Um,
my advice on that and is I tend to think that when you want something so badly and you're trying to make it happen, it almost sometimes creates a blockage of sorts. So
mhm.
it's almost like putting out that intention to say, I'm open to this, but I'm gonna let it happen in its own way, form, or fashion.
Yeah.
But it also, especially because this is still kind of new as far as what you want and you wanting to pursue that, there's also that potential that you might get something else too.
I know, and that scares me too.
You know? So,
But I
you
think
know,
I don't know. I guess like it 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 makes me less scared because I'm like, "Oh, I think my grandpa will protect me if something I didn't want was, like, coming in," and I'm very like, I'm not like, ooh, like, on a Ouija board trying to contact my grandpa, it's not like that, it's more just
yeah.
like I have an altar in my office, and I'll, like, talk to him and, like, whatever, and I'm kind of just like, like, "If you're here," or, like, like, "Just let me, like, feel your presence," and which actually kinda cool. Actually, you know what? Here's the thing. See, like, I'm sorry, I start rambling.
No, please.
I always say that I've never experienced anything paranormal, but, like, I think I have actually. It's just as they're not really like ghost stories in the sense that, like, that people like want to hear. It's like little things like and again, this could be nothing. This could be me just like imagining shit, but one of my grandpa's favorite songs was Moon River, and I had like I had Spotify on, and I picked a random playlist that I never usually pick. And then I went to go walk my dog, and then, I came back, and when I walked into the room, Moon River was playing, and I was like, "Oh my god," and it always makes me think of my grandpa, and then I went to look at my Spotify to see, like, "Oh, how long has this been playing?" And, like, right as I looked at it, the time marker was 1:11, and do you know, like, the significance of 111?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, it's supposedly, a sign that, like, spirits are present, and, like, I literally was seeing 111, like, everywhere after my grandpa died. So it's like, you know what? That could all have just been, like, a weird coincidence, but, like, that day, I was like, "Grandpa, show me that you're here," and then, like, that happened, so I was kinda like, "Okay, that's cool."
I mean,
You
I
think I'm
guess
weird.
my thought on it is no, no, I don't. No, I don't. I mean, you could throw it all at me because I've really reached the point where I don't know what's going on. I don't claim to know what's going on. I am open to all of it. I'm open to the possibility of every crazy shit happening because I feel like when you start working in absolutes or you start acting like the paranormal has rules to it that you understand,
Mhm.
you are really limiting yourself, but it's also an act of arrogance.
Mhm.
But so I've I less so these days, but I would encounter people at one point that would be like, "Ghosts, yeah, ghosts exist, totally exist. Ghosts are awesome, yeah. Aliens, yeah, yeah, aliens. Totally believe in aliens. Bigfoot, nah, none of that Bigfoot stuff." It's like, well, why? How are you putting the limit on that? Or like,
Mhm.
or yeah, I believe in ghosts, aliens, Bigfoot. The trifecta. Fairies, nah, screw that. Or,
Yeah,
but
like, where do
again,
you draw
it's
the
like,
line?
yeah, exactly. Like, who are you to say, well, that part's definitely not real? I think because we want to create some sort of rules, but you don't really know. But I also tend to think that these things do present themselves in a series of smaller events, that it's not always the full bodied apparition. that if you
Mhm.
just start tuning in and listening, then maybe there's these little clues all around us all the time. And maybe
Yeah.
that's what you experience. And honestly, who would I be to say that you didn't experience that or that it
Be
wasn't
an ass.
paranormal? Well, I would be an ass, but ultimately, if it provides you with some comfort,
Yeah,
then
then who
that's the
cares?
important part. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this therapy session.
Well, I mean,
Somebody said
if your therapist doesn't necessarily buy into it, then I gotta do it, right?
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, you know what? I'm paying you a lot of money, but you're not giving me the answers I want, so I'm gonna go seek it out from someone else.
But I also don't want a therapist. That's the other thing is I wouldn't want to. I had a therapist that didn't buy into any of this either. But I wouldn't want a
But
therapist
did they
that.
say that?
Oh yeah, yeah, she did. But
Oh,
I also don't want a therapist that totally buys into all of it because then they would never be able to help me because they'd be like, oh,
yeah,
must be you must be haunted. That's probably what's going on right now. It's like, no,
right.
I need you to help me figure out my crap. Like,
Yeah. Um, cool. Well, I feel like that's a good place to end. Um, thank you so much, Erin, for joining me. This was really fun.
I don't know if I contributed anything at all, but
You did!
okay.
Absolutely did.
I had a lot of fun too, and I want to say hi to Sean Hood. I saw his comment pop up.
Yeah.
Good to see you, and thanks for everybody that popped into the comments and everything. And yeah, I really enjoyed the Sapphire. I feel like for me personally, even though we have not interacted with one another in person, but
Yeah.
the chats we have had and doing this whole paranormal caught on camera, I really respect the hell out of what you have to say
Oh,
on camera and then behind
thank
the
you.
camera, behind the scenes and everything, because I think that you bring a really nice, interesting perspective. So yeah, I'm honored to call you a colleague.
Oh my God. Thank you, Erin. I mean, right back at you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So this was a lot of fun for me too.
Yay! Awesome. Well, you are welcome back if you ever feel the need to hang out on a Wednesday night.
Anytime, just maybe a less humid Wednesday night.
Yeah. Awesome. So is there anything that you would like to plug? Where can people find you? Anything?
Sure, yeah, and thank you for asking. Yeah, first off, hit me up on social media at Aaron Sagers, Instagram, Twitter, all over the place. Say hi, like hearing from folks, and like interacting with everyone. I do a website called paranormalpopculture.com. I'm terrible about updating it, but it includes a lot of interviews that I do with folks about the paranormal, such as Dan Aykroyd or the daughter of Ed and Lorraine Warren. And I also kind of create the connective tissue and history of paranormal topics like the Ouija board or like genies or doppelgangers, things of that nature. And please, I would humbly ask you, I did start this podcast, Nightmerica, during the pandemic, and it's gaining traction, half true crime, half paranormal. And I fully admit, as a guy that is in my 40s talking about the paranormal, a white guy, there's a lot of us out there. There's a lot of white dudes talking about the paranormal. So something I do with Nightmerica is my co-host Britt is a younger woman who brings a different perspective to all of this world, and I'm really appreciative to her for doing that. So check it out. You kind of get a different perspective on the paranormal. So I think that was, oh, thank you. Great Alien House Party. And I don't know whose handle that is, but I'm glad that you're
Oh,
listening to it. Oh,
it's Chad.
it's it's Chad. Oh, okay. Hey Chad. I know Chad.
I don't know,
Thanks,
Chad.
Chad. Yeah, I didn't know his handle, but I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Chad. And so yeah, check that out. And I don't know. I suppose we have episodes of Paranormal Caught on Camera.
Yeah. I guess we should
So
plug that. I don't know.
I guess, yeah,
Sundays. Yes, we live tweet it every Sunday at
we
6
do.
Pacific. And then I guess for you, that's 9 Pacific.
9. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't been live
Some
tweeting with you guys lately, but I'll join some point.
well, sometimes honestly, I gotta say that sometimes like because it's happening at 9 o'clock, it's right after like cocktail hour or in the middle of cocktail hour. So
Yeah.
maybe we'll come up with like a secret word or code word or whatever that suggests that maybe I've had a couple too many tiki drinks before I go into a live tweet.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. I guess have a good rest of your night, everybody. I am so bad at this.
that you were going so strong, and then that ending, it was just like,
I can't go out like that.
yeah, come up with, you need like a catchphrase or a tagline, like
I know. Oh my god. Like, what if like something? Oh, and I was
Ouija
like, what if it could be
related, like
Ouija related? But like, I mean, you say like goodbye, but it's like we just say goodbye. Like that's not a thing.
you could say something like, I don't know what the pun would be on Ouija, like Ouija, happy to see you at the. No, that doesn't work. I don't know. Look, this
Uh,
is really something you should have planned in advance.
it really is my fault. This is all on me. Anyways, all right. Bye for real now, everyone.
Happy Ouija Wednesday.